Good afternoon, and welcome to the AFS Leadership Summit virtual series. We typically hold our annual AFS Leadership Summit in person, but with the current pandemic situation, we knew our in-person meeting could not take place. We have lots to share with you about what AFS has been doing, so we've turned this year's AFS Leadership Summit into a virtual series. We're looking forward to seeing everyone in person in 2021. Today's session is the AFS Cloud Journey, Experience AFSVision in the Cloud. Our webinar will be approximately an hour long, and our speakers today are Melissa Hofer, Managing Director, AFSVision, John DeBill, Managing Director, Application Architecture and Development, and Rag Laney, Managing Director, Technology Services. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. On the right-hand side of your screen, you should see the attendee interface. This attendee interface will allow you to ask questions or make comments. Please use the question feature to do so. We will leave some time at the end of the presentation so that we may answer as many questions as possible. We are recording today's session, and tomorrow you will receive an email with a link to listen or download the presentation. Thank you for joining us today. Melissa?
Thanks, Renee. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us and giving us some of your time. As Renee said, we are going to leave time for questions, and we do encourage the questions. And in addition to John and Rad, we also have Jerry Spohn joining us. Jerry's a director of AFS Technology, mainly to help us with the Q&A session. And we are going to focus today on AFS's vision, deployment options, and our journey to the cloud. However, since this is part of our 50th anniversary series, we thought it would be interesting to sort of take a walk down AFS technology memory lane, and then we can review where we are today with deployment options. So John, can you give us an overview of AFS's past technical stacks and or frameworks?
Sure, Melissa, I'd love to. So again, in honor of AFS's 50th anniversary, let's take a look. We started out with level 3, 3270 mainframe, green screens, delivered on tapes. We migrated really to the at-client world right after that. There we go, we're migrating, right? Excuse me, OS2 Warp. Sorry. OS2 Warp with the task management system, AFS's first workflow enabled system. Quickly after that, we moved to the client server world, Citrix deployment with AFS Parallender, dealing with the post-approval workflow integration to level 3. And we all transitioned to a browser-based Java front end with our AFS level 3 origination product. And finally, on our journey of where we are today is AFS Vision, a ground-up remastering of all of the lessons learned along the way of those different platforms and technologies. Focus really on full end-to-end solutions, straight through process, heavy on API integrations, and really from a development standpoint, having our eyes towards a mobile, fully digital presentation and geared towards a cloud deployment. So Melissa, this really represents the full body of knowledge of AFS as we've all transitioned technologies. Some of these things we look back and remember fondly. Some of these things we're glad that they're gone. But I think the purpose of today really is to have a little fun with technology changes and really to say that if you look back on the history of AFS, sorry, getting a little choked up there in my technology. If you look back on the history of AFS, we've always been there for you as technology changes, and we really will be there for you as technology continues to change in the future.
Thanks, John.
Back to you, Melissa.
I hope we didn't get you too choked up there. And yeah, I think as you mentioned, it's been quite a run through the years with technology, and I'm sure the clients that are on the phone can relate to these changes and challenges because they've had the same changes and challenges in their organization through the years. So what we want to focus on now that we have AFSVision in the market, obviously it's been in production for a number of years. We've been working on a number of deployment options, and we want to take this time to explain to you how AFS is cloud ready now and is working to be cloud native, and then the deployment options for our clients. So Renee, you can go forward. And so I'm going to turn this over to Rad, and I think our first question, Rad, is really what's driving or influencing our effort and our investment in this journey?
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And there are really two things that are driving our cloud journey. The first is the continuing our track record of innovation and technology progress, like we just saw from John. We have a successful history of effective technology adoption. But the second is our customers. They've asked about our cloud strategy and told us what they expected. We hear things like always on, always patched, automated provisioning, auto scaling, lower costs. And to meet these expectations, we've embarked on a 3-step cloud journey with AFSVision to be fully distributed with DevSecOps automation in cloud agnostic containers. So that's what's driven this.
Well, Rad, when you talk about the driving forces, and obviously I've been in a number of those meetings where that's been top of mind for the technologists in the audience. We see a number of these questions on RFPs, et cetera. Can you walk us through AFS's first step in our investment in moving towards a fully distributed platform and how that impacts AFS and our clients?
Yeah, Melissa, recall that AFSVision consists of 2 major components. We've got the workflow component that consists of the user interface and the web service APIs, and the servicing component, which is the accounting system of record and real-time event processing engines. So the first step in our cloud journey was to re-platform the AFSVision servicing component off of the mainframe and onto Linux, making AFSVision distributed. So this simplified the network, improved the response times, enhanced our DR capabilities, and overall reduced the implementation and operating costs of AFSVision. So now AFSVision is operating on Red Hat Linux in a highly available vSphere cluster environment. It's fully distributed.
And I believe last year at our summit, we actually had demos of AFSVision in a fully distributed environment, and the punchline was that it was really looked and felt the same as AFSVision on the mainframe. And one of the things that Jerry emphasized was that it was really the same code base supporting both the distributed version and the mainframe version. So we've gotten that established and behind us. So what do we do next, Rad?
The second step in our cloud journey was to automate provisioning using DevSecOps tools. You may have heard it called infrastructure as code. So building on the continuous integration work of our development team, we're using Ansible playbooks and Jenkins pipeline automation to build AFSVision. With these playbooks, we consistently and quickly build a micro-segmented 3-tiered AFSVision application with end-to-end single key encryption and SAML 2.0 single sign-on capability that is highly available and can scale vertically or horizontally at each tier. What this means then is that AFSVision is now cloud ready. It can be securely deployed and run anywhere that a Linux virtual machine can run. Now, what does this result in? So this is a schematic here of the cloud-ready environment that these scripts build. So you can see on the lower left oval is the workflow component with user interfaces and the web service APIs behind the load balancers. And then the upper right side is the servicing and event engine component. And both are operating on the same database cluster, which is replicated with the whole environment in near real time to a warm DR site. So this is cloud-ready deployment. Melissa, back to you.
Sure. Thanks, Brad. And with the movie that the script that you showed, I'm assuming that's all pretty much unattended, firing off the playbooks and letting them do their thing.
That's right. It was fully unattended, just stacked together in one long pipeline automation built the entire application.
I'm sure you guys like that, right?
Sure do.
So now that we've gone through the the distributed replatforming, we've got our DevOps set up with our playbooks. Where are we headed next with our journey, and what's some timing on that and some specific activities?
Sure, Melissa. Next slide, please. The third step in our cloud journey is to refactor AFSVision for cloud native deployment. So our target architecture is orchestrated containers using enterprise-grade open source components that have integrated common operational services like monitoring and logging, etc., and are secured by design. So this containerized AFSVision can auto-scale depending on the load and can run anywhere, on-premise, in a private cloud, or public cloud. It's cloud agnostic. So we've chosen to partner with IBM for this portion of our cloud journey. We are using their enterprise-grade Cloud Pack containers, which are standardized Docker-like modules from a trusted source that have architectural consistency and security standards. So we're combining these with IBM's Red Hat OpenShift. It's the enterprise-grade Kubernetes orchestration tool to facilitate automated provisioning, multi-region clustering, advanced security, and load-based auto-scaling. So this is a truly cloud-native, cloud-agnostic deployment of AFSVision. And we expect to complete this containerized version of AFSVision in 2021. So this schematic is what cloud-native deployment looks like. You can see we've got a elastic container service with 3 worker pods and a master pod. The workflow pod, the servicing pod, and utility pod are the workers, and each pod can contain 1 or more containers, denoted by the 3 dots there in the middle portion. The master pod specifies the number of containers in each pod and how they're operated and what encryption keys are used and that kind of thing. It also provides a dashboard of the worker pods and their status. So these servers operate all within and with a multi-region database that is replicated to a second region for disaster recovery. The elastic load balancer directs the incoming traffic to whichever region is operational at the time. So Melissa, this is the cloud native deployment we've been going for.
And Brad, you said this is on the docket for next year? Is that where we're headed?
That's right.
And in terms of working with IBM, can you share a little bit in terms of working with IBM and why AFS went that route, and what we think that provides to us?
Sure. AFS has been an IBM shop for many years. We're using many of their middleware components, as most of you know, the WAS server, web application server, and the DB2, and the EMQ, those sorts of things. So it was a natural extension for us to partner with IBM to take advantage of their cloud packs, which are these modules that they've already incorporated the middleware in, so that it kind of it speeds our deployment process into containerization. Eventually, we expect to go maybe different directions. Even then, it depends. The technology is, as John pointed out, is always moving. So we're trying to catch up. But the most important part is for us to have a cloud agnostic deployment capability, and that's where the IBM Cloud Packs come in.
Thanks. So what does this then offer to our clients in terms of deployment options for AFSVision?
So really, it means our customers have options on how they deploy AFSVision. You know, if they choose our SaaS offering, AFS Commerce, we'll be operating their AFSVision instance in our single-tenant distributed private cloud. We've been operating AFS Commerce for over 20 years, so we know how to run it, and we can run it efficiently there. If a customer wants to host AFSVision themselves, they have a choice of options also. They can run it the traditional way with the workflow components on a distributed servers and the servicing components on the mainframe. Alternately, they can run AFSVision fully distributed on their internally hosted Linux servers using our DevSecOps deployment tools as they stand today. And finally, they'll be able to run AFSVision in their private cloud or in a public cloud environments using our future Cloud Pack deployment. So each of these deployment options will provide the same consistent, reliable AFSVision experience. Back to you, Melissa.
Sure. Actually, I believe that covers the material that we wanted to cover, and we really wanted to open it up now to questions from the audience. And I think there's a couple of ways to ask questions. Either you can type them in, or if you want to raise your hand, Renee can unmute you and you can ask your question live. So looking for some questions or clarifications from the audience. It looks like we have one question here about with the AFS Commerce mode, is there a plan to go to the public cloud? Brad?
Yeah, Melissa, that's a good question actually, and it's one we pondered. At this time, we're not going to really be offering a public cloud option within our commerce framework. We feel like the security posture of our private cloud, as well as its performance and our ability to maintain control over that is superior than a public cloud option. So at this time, we will not be offering AFS Commerce in a public cloud.
Okay.
But that's not to say our customers can't choose that on their own.
Right. Understood. And from talking with customers, is there one cloud that appears to be more desirable than others?
Well, Amazon or AWS is the elephant in the room for most everything these days. Of course, Azure has got a very effective message now, particularly around security, and there's others as well. But fundamentally, what we noticed is that you have to be careful if you go to a public cloud about the amount of data that gets moved in and out. You can get some surprise bills, operating a system like this in a public cloud without carefully considering your options. But AWS is the dominant one that we hear about from our customers.
Okay. And I think, we have a question here. It looks like a question. If we go with the Commerce Cloud, what is the turnaround time to bring up? A new environment. I was having a little trouble figuring out how to read the whole question. So, what kind of turnaround times are we looking for in terms of, bringing up a new environment for a customer? Say that they're already a customer on Commerce, and now they want to spin up a training environment or something like that.
Yeah, I think realistically, I'm going to say something like a couple of days to a week. I mean, I think those are the kind of timeframes that we would probably look to schedule and put it up. We, of course, would like to see shorter numbers, but realistically, that's where we are today. Is in a few days.
Okay. And it looks like we've got another question, which is probably more to John and Jerry. Do you have an API framework to connect the bank's ecosystem to AFSVision? How easily will it be to develop and deploy any new APIs for AFSVision? So I'll throw that out to maybe to John or Jerry if you guys want to take that one.
Sure, I'll start and ask Jerry to jump in. So the answer to that is yes. As part of the release coming out this year, we are going to have a full REST-based offering with our API kit. It will allow you to initiate workflows. It will allow you to do seamless integration for online banking, a Salesforce portal, and AFS is looking to make that as easy as possible to have newer and newer API offerings with each release. Jerry, anything else that I forgot there?
Yeah, we also want to add in, we will be adding in the ability to create your own APIs so that you'll be able to provide a mechanism so that you can determine the exact amount of data you're returning back so that you're not over or under fetching any results. We're going to give the capability to allow you to sort and to query your result sets right within the system, thereby reducing and again eliminating the necessary multiple round trips to get information for some of your ancillary systems. Reduce that down to one call if possible.
And I think as well with.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Sure. As well, as far as an integration strategy, AFS is offering single sign-on. So you'll be able to hot link right into AFSVision, knowing keys to the system, such as your obligor number or your obligation number. You'll be able to launch right into AFSVision with that context.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with the REST-based work that we're doing and kind of the roll your own, one of our plans is to actually have individual sessions with each of our banks to talk through that and get your feedback on it because it's exciting and we wanted to do kind of a one-on-one session with each of the contacts that we've made through the needs assessment. So more to come on that. I think we have a few raised hands. Before we go to the raised hands, we had one more typed in question, which I think is to you, Rad. And this one's somebody's trying to get a little more specific than just 2021, looking for when specifically in 2021 would you be cloud native and maybe looking for a quarter versus an exact date. I'll give you that. Leeway.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's always a trick question. You know, it's kind of like whenever you give a month, it's the last day of the month. You know, it's kind of the same here. But actually, we're actually migrating this the AFSVision application in phases. The first phase is to complete the workflow processing and the API interface containerization sometime in the early part of 2021. I'm going to say something like Q1-ish. And start deploying it in our environments for, deeper testing and that sort of thing. And then we're going to move to the servicing components, and the containerization of that would take, some more months, and it's a little bit uncertain as to the time frame. If we're lucky, it'll be 3 months, and we can get it going. Otherwise, it'll be a little longer. So that's the reason I'm hedging this, because it's. There's some unknowns underneath the covers here, and we just need to match expectations with our deliverables. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and thanks, Rad. I mean, obviously, we'll keep the client base informed with that. Renee, do you want to bring up, or I'm not sure how you do it because I can't see the raised hands.
Yep.
So can you direct that traffic?
Yep. So Jeff Gunter has a question. So Jeff, I've unmuted you. So if you wanted to ask your question.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Now just, is workflow refer to the originations workflow as well as the servicing workflows, and then the servicing pod is account servicing? Is that correct or incorrect?
Yeah, Jeff, that's correct. It really, when we talk workflow, we mean all of the workflows, whether it's origination, servicing, LA, syndications, and really the whole UI.
Yep.
And then servicing is the accounting and servicing portion. So yes, in those terms. Yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure that investment was still there.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have another question from Venkat Sarudi. So I have unmuted you. Hello?
Are you able to hear me?
We can hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah. So we are recently embarked into the journey of AFS Vision. I am from First Republic Bank. And from your seminar, I'm hearing all music to ears. Like that's not what we are looking for. But the ground reality is far from what you are actually advertising here. So what is the reality? I mean, when we ask for a new environment, we are giving only prod and one non-prod. We are asking for a second non-prod. We told you wait for 60 days. There's so much pushback for maintenance obligations. And when we ask for a SSO, SAML, we don't know the roadmap. We ask for RESTful APIs with OAuth authentication. And the response is that what is OAuth? So where is the reality between what you are telling on the seminar versus what is practical?
So I'll start with that, Venkat. Thanks for the question. So, First Republic's in sort of a unique spot here where we needed to get you up quickly to be able to have a live vision implementation up and running by, the July, August timeframe. And so in order to do that, we had to take our 3.2.1 version, which is, was on the shelf, was sit tested, was ready to go. And actually we had to migrate some things from our 3.2.2 release into that release to enable the nCino integration that we're working with you. So we did some work to sort of retrofit some of those services to be available for you. But the SAML is a 3.2.2 item, and so that's why it's not available for you initially in your release. And then I believe some of the questions on bringing up different environments, et cetera, was more a matter of focusing on the task at hand. And getting us to where we needed to get to for your business need, which is to have a fully functioning vision up and in production in about a 3-month period. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
So what it is that your cloud offering is available only from 3.2.2, so it is not available on 3.2.1?
The SAML is available on 3.2.2, yes.
So, just to follow up a little more, this environment is actually, in testing and it's been deployed. So we're working on all those components you discussed, and we're well on our way to being able to deliver it to you.
Yeah, and the FRB production environment will be the fully distributed one. So that component is what we're bringing up with you. And then, I believe some of the other things, we understand where we want to get to, and we are working on planning an upgrade to get you there early first quarter once we get through the production implementation.
Okay. Thanks for answering my question.
Yeah, thank you.
Melissa,
Renee?
Jeff Gunter has another question.
Just to follow up on the SAML side, and I might be getting this wrong, so I know a lot of people are using SailPoint for, getting users authorized to be created or access to systems. Like a lot of banks are using SailPoint. So is there any thought about how to integrate that to create new users, delete new users when people leave? They do the leavers, all that kind of stuff. So just curious about how that might work, or if there's thoughts around that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll give that one to John because I think he's got a solution for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you are correct. We run into SailPoint in all of our needs assessments, and there are obviously a couple of options there. From a SAML integration, you can provision your own users, but we do have an entire suite of web services that actually sit over the user profile. So not only can you control adding and deactivating users, you can control their entitlements as well. And we do have a couple of folks working with those web services today. They fully centralized their user provisioning process.
And so just to push it a bit further, because I am that kind of an annoying kind of guy, is there any kind of I'm just thinking, we're getting ready to do it ourselves here at Santander, and yes, I'm no longer at Citizens, but just accelerators around roles and things like that, where you're like, okay, well, this is the kind of payload you'd have to send over to get the roles that you're looking for, kind of thing. It'd just be kind of interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think with a lot of our web services, one of the things we deliver is not only a technical guide, but a lot of samples. So as we would set up your roles, or as you would work through them, we have some kind of ready-made samples out there that you can use to kind of get up to speed with how you provision users, those kind of things. It really serves as our automated test bed as well. So we kind of deliver those with the product, and that gets you 3 steps ahead rather than build it from scratch.
Right, and then I have a totally separate question, if I'm allowed to. I don't know. That might have been 2 already, so if I'm allowed another one, can I do another one?
Sure.
So just you talked about elasticity and containerization and Kubernetes, and this gets real practical when you've got large syndicated deals looking for principal and interest payments at the end of the year. At the end of a quarter. So how is this helping with that? Because that sounds like an interesting feature that you've added. Are you seeing this as impactful to things like month-end, quarter-end, year-end processing?
Yeah, I'll take that one.
I think we.
Well, go ahead,
go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say
go ahead.
Our intention was to address that exact concern, as well as other concerns related to the daily cycles of usage and that sort of thing. But the idea would be to be able to spin up extra capacity either on demand or in advance of the demand, so it's virtually really just hot, and be able to handle those kind of extra workload times.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Who was that talking?
That was Rad.
Bradley.
So you're sort of integrating it with your monitoring to see where we start to kind of get to threshold level, and then you auto provision, or at least somebody gets an alert and they expand capacity. Is that how it works?
Well, we're targeting an auto scale capability based on load.
Okay.
But obviously you could monitor that and preempt it if you so choose.
Yeah, that's neat. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Renee, do we have some more raised hands?
No, we don't, Melissa, but we had a couple of questions which I sent over to you.
I do see that. So I see the first one is, do you have an out-of-the-box data conversion utility for migrating banks from level 3 to AFSVision. We do have conversion tools that we've gone through with each of our banks in our needs assessment process. And we have a standard set that normally we have to do some level of tweaking to as we see how our clients are using data in level 3 that might be needed to migrate to other places in Vision, depending upon the release that the client is on in level 3 and getting to Vision. So the short answer is yes, and we have a very seasoned, experienced conversion team that works with each of our clients on that whole process of data migration from level 3 and even other sources into Vision. I think, Renee, I've gotten the written questions.
Well, there was one here, maybe we answered it, but it's AFS Commerce versus client hosted, public or private. What are the pros or cons?
Oh, I don't see that one.
Well, we think that everyone should use AFS Commerce. That's the pro that we consider to be the right answer there. But obviously, your own environment will dictate that. You know, some of our clients have a significant investment in the mainframe, and you know, they have other operating systems there that are running. So you know, AFSVision would dovetail into that just fine, like it does today on level 3 or any other system. So I think that you know, the pros and cons are dictated by the specific environment and conditions at each bank. There is some desire, as we mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, to move to the cloud. We've heard a lot of interest in that by our customers, and we understand that there's a lot of good reasons for that, one of which is reduce the cost. And so you may find that running auto-scaling workloads in the cloud does in fact lower your cost. So the pros and cons relate to really cost and performance, as they do anywhere, and also which environment you have. And right now, our AFS Commerce environment is a vSphere cluster, a very large one, and so we're going to continue to run that for the time being as we begin to migrate over to more cloud-native solutions. So that's a
Yeah, I think I would add that we've again, through the needs assessment, had dialogue with our clients about where their organizations are headed relative to running a core system like AFS, and we've seen a trend where the banks are really looking for the vendor to take on that responsibility. From an experience level, in terms of having people on staff that are versed in the application. For us, what our commerce environment also, not only do we run the application, but obviously we secure all the infrastructure. We keep up with security patches and other upgrades and infrastructure upgrades that are needed. So really being able to put that on the vendor versus having it on the bank. There's obviously a capital play because the way that a license versus a commerce approach, it's a different outlay of capital for the bank. So there's that consideration as well. So we have seen a trend where clients are looking for AFS to do the software as a service, but we also continue to get asked, can I run it myself, and can I run it in the cloud? And our goal and our exact goal of this presentation was to show you that we're addressing all of those scenarios and ready to work with you depending upon what your organization desires or requires.
Melissa, I would just want to add to you that at least for the last 5 years that I've been using it, when you guys have been running it, it's been excellent. So I think you guys provide an excellent service there. Just, you know, if you want an honest testimonial, I'll say that for a fact.
Thank
And
you very much.
we've run some pretty big loads on it. So
If there's no other questions, I'd like to just mention one other thing. In the beginning of the question and answer session, someone asked about what's the dominant cloud provider, and I answered it, you know, which is true. You know, AWS is the big one, and so on and so forth. But I will say that in the banking sector, we have seen some of our customers and others talk about IBM and the enhanced security features that IBM has brought to the party, and we're looking closely at those. Their single key, you own the key deployment for security is attractive. You know, I know there's others that do that too, but in any case, there are other options besides those the big elephant ones.
Thank you, Rad. We will end our webinar, but wanted to be sure to remind you that you will receive a link to listen to this recording, as well as access the material. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the AFS team. We'd really like to thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.